Sony backtracking on its PlayStation Network enforcement with Helldivers 2, but it doesn't look to be the end to the company's integration plans. A huge announcement involving the successor to the Nintendo Switch and how it could be months away from a formal reveal. Microsoft shutting down some beloved game development studios and the hypocrisy and controversies that followed. A new Lord of the Rings film is being made. EA is testing out in-game advertisements and a big week for new iPad models from top to bottom. The latest in technology, entertainment, and video games all in one. I'm Jason Greenwald, and this is The Fresh Wire. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well, and welcome to another episode of The Fresh Wire. Hope you're all doing well. It is currently May 12th, Sunday, 2024. We're going to jump right into one of the biggest topics of the week, and it was something that happened just moments, if not a few hours after the release of my previous episode last Sunday. Sony actually stepping down and backtracking from the enforcement of linking a PlayStation Network account to the PC version of recently released massive hit Helldivers 2. So now if you play Helldivers 2 on Steam, you will not have to link a PlayStation Network account. What they plan to do with that going forward is uncertain. However, they said, quote, "We'll keep you updated on future plans." Obviously a huge deal. As I talked about in my previous episode, the whole ordeal of having to make a PlayStation Network account, or if you already had one, and all the data breaches that have happened. Obviously not great to have to link a third-party account to your Steam account as a requirement to play the game. It delisted it from over 170 different countries. It was a big problem, a big ordeal. Now, there is a bit of an update to this since then. It's very recent. Earlier this week, days after this debacle with the PlayStation Network and Helldivers 2, now Ghost of Tsushima, which is planning to be released on PC in the near future, has been delisted and is being refunded by Valve, not Sony, in over 170 countries, similar to what happened with Helldivers 2. Although they ended up retracting the requirement, it looks to be Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut might not have the same fate. Previously, the news came out that Sucker Punch, the developers of Ghost of Tsushima, said PSN account linking would only be required for the co-op multiplayer mode and not the single player. This is just days before the game is supposed to launch on Steam on May 16th. But to be delisted means that it's being delisted from countries that don't have PSN support at all, which is actually most of the country. So even though Sony reversed its decision with Helldivers 2, I still think it's not available in those 170 countries. So for Ghost of Tsushima to be suffering the same fate is confusing and hopefully gets resolved very quickly. Now, Sony, it's confirmed by Steam support that Sony is responsible for removing the game from sale in those countries, and it's also been confirmed that Valve, the developer of Steam, has been issuing refunds for Ghost of Tsushima pre-orders made in regions that don't have PlayStation Network. So hopefully this is resolved as soon as possible. This is absolutely ridiculous, and Sony continues to be a big problem. Now, before I get into what Microsoft has been doing and what happened with Apple in recent days, there's also a very big topic that I have to get right into, and it involves Nintendo. Nintendo has been hit or miss and being very anti-consumer and then doing things that don't make a whole lot of sense, but they are doing some things that I definitely have to mention, and it involves the successor to one of the most successful platforms they've ever created, the Nintendo Switch. So during what seems to be around the time of an earnings report or whatnot, Nintendo has confirmed that whatever the successor to the Nintendo Switch is, which I'll tentatively call the Switch 2, will be revealed before April 2025. Now, the main reason that they revealed this detail is likely because they're anticipating a sales slump ahead of introducing the Switch successor, and the Switch successor has currently already been rumored for a first quarter 2025 launch. Here's the official statement from Nintendo themselves. "We will make an announcement about the successor to Nintendo Switch within this fiscal year. It will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of Nintendo Switch back in March 2015. So they directly say that they're going to talk about and show off or announce specifically. We have to be very careful with the wording here, especially because the following sentence is that they announced the existence of the Switch back in March 2015. And here's the kicker. They're saying they're going to make an announcement about it within this fiscal year. Now, luckily, all of the rumors and leaks and whatnot indicate that this is going to have a first quarter 2025 launch. So for them to, for some reason, say we're going to make an announcement this fiscal year, which means the end of March 2025, and then the next sentence connect it to when they announced Nintendo Switch back in March 2015, which, if you don't know, some mobile gaming company announced a partnership with Nintendo, and Nintendo had no choice, really, for their investors, but to say that they were still working on a successor to the Wii U. I don't know if they then called it the Nintendo NX, but they did at some point. But that was technically the first time ever that the Switch was in some capacity talked about in an official way. Now, since then, of course, we've had the Nintendo Switch, massive success, 140 million units sold or so. And now we're in a new generation, really at the middle of the point, and nothing at all about the successor, so the Switch 2, whatever it ends up being called. Hopefully, it's something extraordinary. From all the rumors that have been going around, it should be a huge performance boost. It should be capable of all these new features that NVIDIA have been implementing into their GPUs, graphical processor. And also in that statement, they do also say that they will be holding a Nintendo Direct this June regarding software or games for the Switch. But there will not be a mention of the Switch successor during that presentation. So they're already telling people, we're going to have a Nintendo Direct around the time E3, Electronic Entertainment Expo, it normally would have been, but that's now dead. Rest in peace, to a degree. And also probably that they're not going to be at the Summer Games Fest, which I think is in July. It's sometime this summer. So at least they're confirming they will show off something, because as of now, their second half of 2024 looks very, very empty. Now, of course, several years ago, 2017, Nintendo announced Metroid Prime 4, and I'm just going to put it out into the world. If we could have Metroid Prime 4 finally be announced, that'd be fantastic. Now, it could be a monkey's paw situation, and the finger curls, and it's actually for the Nintendo Switch 2, but I mean, come on. It was announced summer 2017. I think it was early 2019. They confirmed they had to restart development. And we are now in the middle of 2024 with literally no mention of anything about it since then, except maybe a few job listings here and there by the developer Retro Studios. So hopefully Nintendo does something crazy. There's been a whole lot of rumors about the Switch. I'm not going to get into them because they're all alleged leaks and whatnot. So you could do your own research. I trust some of it, admittedly, because they're from reliable leakers, but they're not really details that matter a whole lot, other than it will be a much better platform, which is what I care about the most. Also, a little more on Nintendo Switch. Direct sharing to x/twitter.com, your photos or screenshots or videos, will end on June 10th. So, that's a big deal. If you were someone that shared your screenshots or videos, your 30-second clips to x/twitter.com, then that functionality is going to end next month. Now, to be fair, this has features involving x/twitter.com have been already gone from PlayStation and Xbox in recent months. So for Nintendo to do this now is not out of the ordinary, but they actually specified a bit further, and it's actually more of a devastating change than anticipated. There was actually more of an integration with x/twitter.com than I thought. For example, you will no longer be able to post screenshots from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate to the Nintendo Switch Online smart device app called, Nintendo Switch Online, the feature called Smash World. That will become unavailable. In Splatoon 2, you will no longer be able to post from the mailbox in Inkopolis Square, which means those posts that pop up of people's drawings and whatnot in Splatoon 2 will disappear and will instead just be drawings and whatnot that were already made inside the game software. Of course, for Splatoon 3, much newer game, they will change it where instead of it being sent, or instead of where you'll be able to publish on x/twitter.com or Facebook, now it'll directly go through Nintendo servers, which actually means you will no longer need to have an x/twitter.com or Facebook account to make these posts, but they are also saying if you're younger than 13, your post will know other players. Now, one thing to note, speaking of Facebook, You can still post screenshots and videos to Facebook, but they're saying that service may be discontinued at a later date. So a big ordeal going on here, and they even reference something involving older platforms. The ability to send friend requests to social media friends via the friend suggestions menu on my page on the Switch would also no longer be available. But you can continue to use the friend suggestion feature from smart devices, 3DS, and Wii U. So, hey, 3DS and Wii U. The fact that you can still connect that with each other is still pretty cool. I just hate the fact that now, if you have these sort of pictures from Splatoon 3, and they're being sent directly to Nintendo servers, they'll now also be copied, if they already weren't, to your Switch. And it's saying images in the album can be transferred to a smart device or wirelessly or a PC via USB cable. So that's great. That's absolutely wonderful and just filled with joy, because the smart device restriction is 10 screenshots or one video capture at a time. And let's say you're an avid data hoarder like me and you take screenshots and videos of everything on the Switch or other platforms. That's not going to fly. But of course, this is because Elon Musk is not a good guy. So, yeah, unfortunate. And one last big thing before the Microsoft. Apple, I'm not sure if I actually hinted at this, but Apple has officially done their iPad event, and it was their first one in nearly 2 years. And I'll just get you through the skinny. The iPad Air now has a larger 13-inch model with a more powerful chip. Instead of the M1, it's the M2 processor, although they still start at $800. The iPad Pro now has an OLED display, which is in almost all smartphones nowadays. So deeper blacks, more vibrant colors, and it's also apparently the thinnest Apple device ever made, 5.1 millimeter in depth for its 13-inch model. Also introducing a new M4 processor, because we sure want that in a tablet. It starts at $1,000. Also, speaking of, the M4 chip. So it's more capable, it's more efficient, it's faster, it's AI. Of course, there was a massive amount of AI mentions in this press event, so not surprising there. A new Apple Pencil Pro with haptic feedback and a new squeezing gesture to open up menus. It'll be compatible with the iPad Pro. Not sure if it'll be compatible with other iPads, and costs even more, $129. Also, a new Magic Keyboard that Apple says it, quote, feels just like using a MacBook, unquote. Again, starting at $300. The original 10th generation iPad now costs $100 less at $349. Although I've been reading that the iPad before that one, the 9th gen, that really looks like an iPad that you think of from years ago. I think now that's around $249, but they may just be clearing stock. And updates across the board with their creative apps like Final Cut Camera, which I guess is going to be kind of like Final Cut, but meant for live multi-camera production. Okay, so yeah, Apple stuff, iPad stuff. If you're into that, congrats. If you like iPads, you like iPads. Now, if you like Microsoft, this has been a horrible week. Microsoft did the unthinkable because of how ridiculous it is and shut down multiple game development studios. Tuesday, May 7th, Xbox employees were sent an email from the head of Xbox Game Studios, Matt Booty, telling them that Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and Alpha Dog Games would be shutting down. The email saying this was so the company could focus on, quote, high impact, and this pretty much meant a whole lot of shutdown, including for things that were already in development. For example, there was a pitch to the highly beloved game Hi-Fi Rush. For example, one of the games Arcane Austin was making, Redfall, released to very mediocre reviews, but tried to at least keep up with support for it, including the fact that it had some big DLC that people were paying for. They had to keep releasing updates for it, and reportedly, an offline mode was being in development and was very close to release, but now that's been canceled. So now, when the service for Redfall shut down, you can thank Matt Booty and Xbox Game Studios for shutting down the studio that, if just given a few days more, could have made the game actually survive beyond server shutting down. Also, a pitch for Hi-Fi Rush 2 was reportedly sent through, and, well, this was the result. It's like talking with a girl and asking if they wanted to be your girlfriend, and the worst they could say is no, and this is actually worse. than if they just said no. Xbox did say that it would provide, quote, make good, unquote, offers to people who'd pre-order. Whatever that is yet to be confirmed. Of course, massive public backlash then ensued because, keep in mind, in Xbox back in January, there were nearly 2,000 layoffs impacting workers in Activision Blizzard that they just acquired last year. And it seems to be that this sort of new era of financial security and creative freedom that was hopeful for a lot of these studios that were being bought out is now completely dead. And it's even weirder because Hi-Fi Rush was such a huge success when it came to PlayStation 5 earlier this year, and there were rumblings that it was possibly coming to Nintendo Switch. Now that's completely killed off. Part of the announcement saying that Hi-Fi Rush will be continued to be available on platforms it's on today, which is a pretty big indicator that if it was coming to Switch, it never will now. So obviously a huge problem overall. Xbox employees getting mixed messages from this. A town hall meeting was held for its employees, and it just completely made actually even less than no sense, because from what I read, one higher up at Microsoft or Xbox even said games like Hi-Fi Rush should continue to be made, and that how important those games are. But then they just shut down the company that was willing to make the sequel to it with all the talent they still had. Matt Booty didn't specify why Tango Gameworks, the developers of Hi-Fi Rush, was shut down, but still praised the game, which just really makes no sense, especially because it was reportedly a huge hit, and that the company just a year ago, they said, was not in any danger of being shut down. He did also claim that Arcane Austin's shutdown was not tied to the poor reception and performance of Redfall. So one thing that was suggested, though, that may have contributed to the decision, or rather did, was the fact that they had just released these games last year and would likely not see another release for several years. For Arcane Austin, they were looking into working on a, quote, immersive sim, unquote, game similar to the studio's previous work, including the beloved Dishonored and Prey titles. Matt Booty claiming resources were spread too thin, comparing these resources to, quote, peanut butter on bread, unquote. So this decision, according to the head of ZeniMax Studios, was meant to streamline Bethesda so it could focus on fewer games at once. But it seems ridiculous, because if this was anticipated, why were these companies bought at all? Just a few years prior, just for them to make these few games that were, one of them beloved, the other not so much, but it kind of felt like it was forced in development from the beginning, talking about Redfall specifically, and then shutting them down because they're not going to make another game for a while? Unfortunately, that is the current status of the gaming industry. The problem is, I don't think Hi-Fi Rush took years to work on, and it was only just pitched because they were still making bug fixes, I assume, especially because they were just releasing it on PlayStation 5 with the possibility of a Nintendo Switch launch. And Hi-Fi Rush was so highly beloved, it's not like it didn't make money because it was on Xbox Game Pass. It was everywhere. So even externally, the messaging from Xbox was also very, very, very bad. And I'm just going to read out her response, specifically the response from the president of Xbox, Sarah Bond. You know, one of the things I really love about the games industry is it's a creative art form, and it means that the situation and what success is for each game and studio is also really unique. There's no one-size-fits-all to it for us. And so we look at each studio, each game team, and we look at a whole variety of factors when we're faced with sort of making decisions and trade-offs like that. But it all comes back to our long-term commitment to the games we create, the devices we build, the services, and ensuring that we're setting ourselves up to be able to deliver on those promises, unquote. That was her response to why the success of Hi-Fi Rush did not ensure the safety of Tango Gameworks. And keep in mind, it was literally just a year ago, that it was the developer was directly in question on, is this company going to survive after being bought by Microsoft? And someone, it might have been Phil Spencer, straight up said, this company we see a bright future for, and everything like that. I might be mixing words up a bit, but he was pretty much securing this company's going to stick around. And that's exactly what didn't happen. So, oof. Now, already, another future title for Xbox could be in peril, because Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is coming out on May 21st, one of the first titles that was announced for Microsoft's next platform, the Xbox Series X, back in late 2019. or 2019, somewhere there, is releasing May 21st. And they just days ago started their global marketing campaign, which is incredible. I don't even know how that's even possible. Such a huge game that I don't even know is going to be on Game Pass. Probably expensive, and it looks extremely detailed and realistic, and will probably be a great title based on how Senua's Saga, the first one, was. But dang, that's ridiculous. Will it turn a profit? Will it not turn a profit? And now it's not even clear what's going to happen. The vision of Xbox is completely turned around in ways that just look absolutely ridiculous. And I'm just glad I don't have, I guess, an Xbox Series X, because now I feel like it's going to become more of a third-party machine than it ever was. So many titles that were thought to have been in development for Microsoft or Xbox, now you got no idea. So, I don't know. I'm just hoping for the best for any developer that was impacted or affected. I'm certain for them to say, oh, yeah, I worked on Hi-Fi Rush. They're going to get a job, hopefully very quickly. But, of course, with all the layoffs that have been happening, a whole rush of talent is coming in. Non-compete agreements are hopefully banned in the near future, as the U.S. government is hoping to achieve. And we may get some absolutely phenomenal indie games in the near future that I'm certain are going to be worth their time, at least a lot of them. What may or may not be worth it is what Warner Bros. Discovery is doing involving Lord of the Rings. Yeah, a new Lord of the Rings movie coming in 2026, directed by Andy Serkis, who's also set to star in the movie for Gollum. It's called Lord of the Rings: The Hunt, and it's also going to be produced by Peter Jackson. Now, this is not completely unexpected. Last year, the company announced it was working on, quote, multiple Lord of the Rings movies, unquote, with New Line Cinema, which made the original trilogy by Peter Jackson. And now this is one of the first ones confirmed. An earnings call earlier this week, the CEO announcing it expects this film, The Hunt for Gollum, to debut sometime in 2026, exploring storylines yet to be told. So, yeah, obviously, huge deal. No casting announcements have been made, and no other specifics were shared, but this is a huge deal. A new Lord of the Rings movie. Is it going to be any good? Are any beloved characters, actors, actresses are going to come back? Is it going to be fresh and exciting in ways that were better than The Hobbit? No idea, but all you can do is hope. And hope that it's nowhere near as bad as the Gollum game that came out, I think, earlier, just months ago. It was so bad, it shut down a whole company. I think I may have talked about it in a previous episode. Now, one thing I don't like, or many people don't like, are advertisements. And this is not like a sponsor segment or anything, but it's rather what Electronic Arts, or EA, just came out and talked about. They're prototyping in-game advertisements. CEO literally saying, quote, we have teams internally in the company right now, unquote. So during an earnings call, seems like a lot of earnings call information, Nintendo and Warner Bros. Discovery, now this, an analyst asked about, quote, the market opportunity for more dynamic ad insertion across more traditional AAA games, unquote. CEO saying they're already working on it. And they're not even apparently the most exciting thing that the CEO is talking about, saying it's still early on that front, saying EA needs to be, quote, very thoughtful, unquote, and saying the bigger ad opportunity is, quote, beyond the bounds, unquote, of games. So, yeah, in-game advertisements, I'm just going to move on because that's just not good. Speaking of not good, back to Microsoft, but a little bit of a big announcement. They're finally talking about a bit more about their Xbox mobile gaming store, the fact that it's launching in July, and it'll be available on the web first with Microsoft's first-party titles. So it's going to be mainly games that seems to be that are games that Microsoft develops or is published by them, including Candy Crush Saga. Remember, that is a Microsoft title, just like Minecraft, which will also be reportedly on this first-party portfolio for the Xbox mobile store. They're hoping it's going to be accessible across all devices, all countries, no matter what the policies of closed ecosystems stores are going to be. So they'll be able to avoid Apple's strict App Store rules, it seems. And yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to pull this off with a web-only mobile store, positioning it as however they can position it as an alternative to mobile games already existing on rival app stores. They've hinted at this next generation store back in early 2022, shortly after they announced they were going to acquire Activision Blizzard. So that'll be exciting, however that pans out. A little more on Microsoft. Windows 11 screenshot tool is getting QR code scanning and emoji support. All I can say to that is, finally. So it seems like you'll now be able to scan QR codes in the snipping tool program, or snip and sketch, or whatever it's called. That's fantastic. That's genuinely fantastic, and I'm surprised that's not more of a common function. They're also going to add support for their emoji that can be now soon added to any screenshot. And yeah, pretty big update there. Another big update. Previously, I talked about some big sports-related streaming bundle coming from ESPN, I think Warner Bros. Discovery, Fox Sports. And now it looks like another streaming bundle's on the way involving Disney, Hulu, and Max. So, not cable? Disney and Warner Bros. Discovery are teaming up to offer Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max in a bundle that will become available in the U.S. this summer. It'll have both ad-supported and ad-free options. Cost is unknown, and the companies say that they will share additional details in the coming months. And once available, you'll be able to buy the bundle from Disney Plus, Hulu, or Max's website. So that's a pretty big detail. We're going to get two extremely big bundles that could be focusing on different aspects. One will have Hulu, the other will have Fox Sports. Wonder how that will play out, especially if you want a bit of both. Speaking of a bit of both, ESPN is coming to the Disney Plus app later this year. Select live games will be available, actually, to all Disney Plus subscribers. But if you have ESPN Plus, the expectation is everything in ESPN Plus should be accessible in the Disney Plus app. It'll be a title dedicated to ESPN Plus. More specifically, how that will work out is something we'll have to wait and see. But Disney CEO Bob Iger said that he sees this as a first step to bring ESPN to Disney Plus viewers as they ready the launch of their enhanced standalone ESPN streaming service fall 2025. Now, a bit of VR. If you're a huge fan of Beat Saber, but you own the original Meta Quest, or rather Oculus Quest headset, you will want to hear this. Multiplayer support will soon end, along with updates and customer support, beginning November 2nd, 2024. Quest 1 users will still be able to play the game after the change goes into effect. And if you have the PC version, you can continue to access normal features, including multiplayer and updates, through MetaQuest Link, which allows you to wirelessly or wired connect your VR headset to your computer to use it like it's a normal external VR headset. Actually, a pretty great feature. I don't think it's underrated, but is overall very fantastic to use. As someone that uses it myself, virtual desktop is another great use for connecting VR headsets to your PC. Game developers may phase out leaderboard functionality on the Quest 1, quote, in the future, unquote, as well. So that, however they play that out, will be interesting. Keeping in mind, Meta has been pushing to phase out the Quest 1 headset, cutting off new features back in January 2023, and no longer allowing developers to update their games or create new ones for the headset. Also in August, if you own a Quest 1 headset, this is big, it will no longer receive bug fixes or security patches. Now, keeping in mind, I think this launched, the Quest 1 headset, back in 2019. So 5 years or so of support in any capacity is a pretty big deal, even, for smartphones including. So keep that in mind. If you have Beat Saber from your Quest 1, make sure to look into getting a Quest 2 or Quest 3. I think I've seen MetaQuest 2s for as low as $200. So if you're into the market of keeping support for that, then definitely look in. Now, bit of AI. Rather than futurology this week, I will focus on AI because not a whole lot of craziness has happened, but this is actually a pretty big deal. There's a big report that came out from The Information indicating that OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, could debut a multi-model AI digital assistant. Now, what does that mean? Reportedly, some of OpenAI's customers have been shown this new model that can both talk to and recognize objects. Reportedly, this could be part of what the company plans to show off tomorrow at some sort of event they're planning. The new model reportedly offering faster, more accurate interpretation of images and audio than what its existing separate transcription and text-to-speech models can achieve. And it can even help customer service agents, quote, better understand the intonation of callers' voices or whether they're being sarcastic, unquote. And theoretically, the model can help students with math or translate real-world signs, all according to the report by The Information. Outlet sourcing that the model can outdo GPT-4 Turbo, I think that's its best model, at, quote, answering some types of questions, unquote, still susceptible to getting things confidently wrong. Oh, this is a pretty big deal. They may even be building an ability for ChatGPT to make phone calls. Now, none of this, reportedly, would be the big GPT-5, which would be the successor to the current GPT-4. CEO Sam Altman explicitly denying the upcoming announcement has anything to do with a model that's supposed to be materially better. Now, the information also says GPT-5 could be publicly released by the end of 2024. Whenever that happens, that'll be scary. But this big live-streamed event will happen 1 p.m. Monday, and if anything big comes out of it, I'll let you guys know in the next episode. Finally, Microsoft wanting to turn everyone into a prompt engineer. In a previous episode, I talked about how Microsoft was pausing a bit on pushing AI features with its Microsoft Copilot assistant, and now it wants to improve, in the meantime, how people create their questions. In the coming months, Copilot from Microsoft 365, which is the paid that adds AI assistants to Office apps, will be updated with a new autocomplete feature offering suggestions to improve your AI prompts. Here's an example. If you start creating a prompt, then Copilot will soon offer to complete it with extra details to improve the end result. If you start typing, for example, summarize, then Copilot will display options to summarize the last 10 unread emails in your inbox or other tasks related to your Office data. The company is also working on a new Elaborate Your Prompt feature that will essentially rewrite any prompts you create, which could help you for when Copilot wants to take action on a file or when you want Copilot to take an action on a file, but you're not sure what level of detail would help to get the most out of. So with just the click of a button, Copilot can turn a basic prompt into a better one. According to Jared Spataro, Microsoft's corporate vice president of AI at work, in a blog post. So of course, a lot of AI use. This is more business oriented, but whatever it may be, I guess all I can be is excited for it and hope for the best. Now that's it for me. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it. And I will catch you on the next one. Until then, this has been Jason Griwa with The Fresh Wire. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, day, or night, however you are, however you live.